Right here. So, welcome to Ask Me Anything. This is the AMA session from the Asato Dojo, and this is a session where you get to ask us anything, myself and my special guests. And this week, I'm very pleased and privileged to be joined by one of my teachers and mentors, Patrick McCarthy. Thank you, Sensei, for coming.
Mensore, Chaganju.
It's been a beautiful day in Okinawa. It's been a typical tropical day, which means it's rained most of the day. If you're coming to Okinawa later this year, and I know a lot of you are headed here, get ready for the true tropical weather, which is it's scorching hot and then it's rainy. It's absolutely wonderful. We've had a busy day, and I have been blown away by the response from everybody. We've got lots and lots of questions lined up. To be honest, many more than we're going to be able to squeeze into the 1 hour that we've got here for the AMA. So I don't want to delay too much, but I am going to do one thing before we start the questions, which I kind of forgot in the previous two we did. So I promised we would do giveaways, and that's what I'm going to do today. So I'll be giving away the highly coveted new edition Asato Dojo t-shirt and the now very limited Dojo Bar keyring. So we'll be choosing one person that sent us questions in advance or gives us questions in the live session today. We will choose and be sending these to you, and we'll get in contact to get your details for that if we don't already have them. So thank you very much. This is coming out to one of you later on. So, like I say, we've had a lot of questions. Yeah.
I was just going to say earlier, I can't read them because it's either too far away or too close up from my glasses.
No worries. I'll keep the glass on. I'll do the reading. Yeah, we got lots of questions via email, via messenger, and otherwise. And broadly, we've received 3 categories of questions. Some relate to life here in Okinawa. Running a dojo here, for example, teaching here, particularly as a let's say instructor of foreign origin. We have a second category of questions which are all about karate strategy, karate technique, and some really interesting questions there. And we also have a third category of questions about the event that is scheduled for October, running October 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. The first Koryu Uchinadi Gassuku, International Gassuku and Seminar here in Okinawa. So some of those are, kind of quite practical questions. A lot of it is about...
I thought they were all great. I wish we could answer them all.
So we're going to try to cover all of those bases in the time that we have. So let's kick off. My first question to you is how are you enjoying life in Okinawa?
How does it look?
Well, you are decked out in the great gear.
I love the karaishi wear and certainly the bingata flavor. That's, and this weather is so conducive to that type of clothes. But, and Sensei James was mentioning, today's been a very typical day for this time of year. But I've learned an interesting word from our Canadian friend Dan Antison. You look out the weather and it's beautiful, and then it starts raining, and the Okinawans will say to you, "Katabui desu kedomo."
Yes,
katabui, and I went,
"Katabui."
I've never heard that term before. My wife is Japanese. I said, "Well, what does that mean, katabui?" And she said, "I don't know." And we found out it means that basically, don't worry, the weather's going to change in a couple of minutes anyway.
That's right. It's the rainstorm that comes in really quickly, very violently, and then blows away. Yeah. So the idea that there's always the sunshine after the storm. Yeah.
How do I like living in Vancouver? 2 countries ago. I love it. It is. We really came here chasing a kind of a dying lifestyle. This whole idea about karate for peace. And as opposed to the competitive element or the business aspect.
Yes.
And the culture here and the food and the historical sightseeing, and the people are so friendly. And it's funny. The island is only about 110 or 20 kilometers, 60 miles 60 miles long.
Yeah.
100 some odd.
20K, 130K.
Okay,
Yeah.
So it's very, very small. And actually, in many ways, it feels so much bigger because it seems to be an island of tiny communities. Apologies for that. Yeah. An island of little communities. Nago to Nambu. There's a local over there. Yeah. And then from Haibaro over to Chatan. If you draw a Christian cross and turn it upside down, you kind of got the middle of where kind of in Naha, and each of the communities are so independently different.
Yes.
Food and sometimes weather as well, because you don't get the same type of I can be talking to you in Tomigusuku when I'm in Uruma. It's beautiful there and it's raining down there. And
exactly. You never
know.
But
look at how it's absolutely beautiful. And I don't think you have to wait to be my age to come here to retire. It's an absolutely remarkable culture, and there's absolutely nothing I don't like about it.
Fantastic. So one of the questions that we received, and this is from Anthony Rummery. Thank you, Anthony, for you've given us 2 or 3 great questions. But the first one was, and it relates, of course, to being here. What's it like to have so many senior level, respected martial artists in one place? You, and I think he means you and me, or maybe both of us, you make it seem so commonplace to meet such and such sensei who studied under so-and-so sensei and will have been training for 150 years on Friday. Meeting for a beer or a barbecue or training or tacos. It's such an alien concept living in an environment where such revered people are a rarity.
Okay. Anthony or Tony, thank you very much for the question. I think one of the common threads that weave together the fabric of this culture is a local term called chimugukuru. Chimugukuru, not to be confused with chimudundong. Chimugukuru. So, for example, if you take away the training and the exchange between people on a competitive level, and whatever remains in the end is just a relationship. How you get along with folks. And there's this very unique trait here, a character trait in Okinawa, and the Okinawans have been known for it for really, even all the way through the Ryukyu Kingdom period, is this willingness and desire to help other people through their culture. And irrespective of what activity, it could just be food. It could be Asa dancing, music. In our case, of course, it's karate. It's the fighting arts, and it kind of leaves you with such a wonderful feeling about. And so you asked a question about all these high-ranking guys. I don't really think the ranks. I haven't met anybody here who's I'm a 10th dan or something.
You know what? Yeah, I think you get a chance to get to know them as people.
Yeah, people. Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And of course, this is the interesting thing. This is the thing I've noted. One of the differences between Okinawan culture and, let's say, mainland Japanese culture is that there's a very strong emphasis on etiquette in mainland Japanese culture.
Very much so.
But that underpins and is connected to, obviously, respect, showing respect.
Sure.
Whereas in Okinawa, there's maybe a little less etiquette, but you are expected to show genuine respect. And that's not difficult to do because you can meet people and respect. And
as you well know,
the way they live and what they've done, right?
Absolutely. And I don't need to explain that to you, but you're a fluent speaker, and the Japanese language is such so that even the way you speak, I know that especially in the West, we are not supposed to have a class structure. That's and here, although there's no class structure, you have 1,000 years of a homogeneous culture where the way you spoke to perhaps a senior was not the same way that you spoke to a peer or to a junior. And the language accommodates that as well in what we call suffixes. James and I are the same age, by the way. So you see, so I would refer to, if we were speaking to each other, I would say James san. Or maybe somebody more senior to me, I would certainly want to call him James Sensei. And often the way that you would speak to somebody younger, I might say James kun. And your ears might not pick it up if you're not familiar with the language, but so you can kind of tell some of that about the people when you speak, certainly about their age, But look at it, and pending the fact that you want to learn more about, the culture here, their cultural anthropology, and understand things like tatemae or honne. It is just when you greet someone on the street, you remember that you've already met them in the past. And so there's this cultural phenomenon, which in Uchinaguchi is pronounced wasurenai de ichariba chode. Don't forget, we've already met once, if only by chance. So we are brothers or sisters or friends for life, so to speak. And that carries out.
It's a beautiful, beautiful sentiment. And in that regard, let's say a quick hello to some people that have joined us online. So on our YouTube live here, thanks guys for saying hello. We got David S. from Florida. We have hello from Germany. That's Okinawa Karate Moorfelden.
Wie geht's?
Hi to Chris Nunn from the UK. Jason K. Hello. And Marco Forti. Hello from Italy.
Marco ciao Marco. Come stai? Tutto bene, grazie mille.
And Fernando Garcia, hello from Mexico. Okay, so if you want to post a question to myself or a sensei while he's here, you can write it in the comments on the YouTube in live. We'll see that real time, and if we can pick it up and answer, we will. Or you can log on to our Zoom session. You'll arrive in the waiting room, and we're going to keep you in the waiting room until we bring you in to ask your question. So write your question in the chat function in Zoom if you're logged into Zoom. And then we will let you know and bring you in to ask the question live if you're ready, if you've got your best Zoom face on and you're all good to go. Okay, so
I can't see anything, so I'm leaving it entirely up to you.
Well, I'm gonna take a question, but let's see. Okay, yeah. So are you able, so this is a question, are you able to describe the opportunities and challenges of opening a Asato Dojo in Okinawa? Follow-on question, how much of being perceived as a gaijin was a factor in the ability to open a Asato Dojo? Could be a controversial question and answer.
Let out the secrets, come on.
Yeah. So principally, I opened my dojo because I wanted to have a location where we could pursue a fairly free training schedule. And what I mean by that is we could pursue training and research and pursue, a wider scope than I might get in just one other teacher's dojo. So, and I think I also wanted to give the opportunity, a lot of opportunity for visiting teachers to come and share their teaching here too. And that's actually one of the things that we do very regularly here is we invite other very senior, very experienced instructors to come and take the mat, take the floor, and teach and share. And I love that that is how it works.
And I can assure you there's a very unique concept here in Okinawa.
Yeah. People are very protective of their space in their dojo. That's understandable. But I mean, if you've ever been to the dojo bar, and many people are now waiting for that to return, and we will let you know when that's ready to come back. But the dojo bar was all about having an open space where you could share, meet, make friends, learn from each other, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of the idea behind the Asato Dojo too. Also,
hence the name,
the Kokusai Budo Koryu, which means the International Dojo of Martial Arts Exchange. So that's kind of the subtitle. Challenges. Well, I haven't had anybody walk in the door and challenge me yet.
Challenges.
But every time I say this, I can expect someone just to turn up and have a go.
They came in once, and then we were saying, and then they came in, and when they looked at it, they went,
We have a lot of glass that people can see right into the dojo. So maybe that puts them off before they step across the threshold. I did have a guy come in the other night. He'd had a little bit too much to drink, and he wasn't like super aggressive, but he was really sure that he wanted to show us his karate. So we sort of just ushered him out a little bit. No, it's a pleasure and a privilege to be able to run a dojo here, and I feel very lucky to be able to do so.
Nothing really to add to that, because look at it. This is the island birthplace which cradled the art that brings us all together, and I think just to be here, first of all, whether you travel for a moment, or you spend months, or you immigrate here, it's a gift. It's it's everything that you want it to be. And look at, the art can be perceived on so many levels, and I think that has to do with age and experience and desired outcome. What are you looking for? But I haven't met any disappointed people yet. No, it's and you're right. Opening any. I would say if it was free, you wouldn't have to worry about it, because you could just walk in and get a building for nothing, and don't have to worry about mortgage or rent or something like that. So obviously there's a commercial entity to the business side of things,
Yeah, of course.
And so you need to generate. Unless you're wealthy like James, you need to.
I wish.
you need to generate enough revenue to be able to keep the doors open, and so in that regard, speak about there are challenges, and the challenges are certainly, as in any business, is to provide goods or services, and to build a clientele or a membership base. Where there's, I like to think that you give more than what you're paying for.
Yeah.
So there's an extra incentive on top of the fact that they're coming here not just for karate. I know somebody asked me recently, "Oh, you're very lucky because you're teaching karate in English." Actually, we're not teaching karate in English. It's もしできればちょっと日本語を大体いつも皆さんは英会話わからないですけども、most people coming here, they cannot speak English at all unless they're visiting for a foreign country. So you have to be on your game. You have to make sure that you've got everything right.
That certainly is a challenge. Is yes, having just even the basic competencies to be able to teach, and that's an ongoing challenge, right? You have to keep working at that. Yeah.
No one knows it all.
I think any good teacher should be very, very well aware of what they can't do well, right? And all the things they'd like to do better. I think you should be constantly kind of thinking, am I good enough to do this, in a way, right? To keep that sort of...
Certainly keeps you humble.
Keeps you on your toes and keeps you humble,
Yeah.
Okay. So we've had some really interesting questions that relate to sort of karate training, relate to the process of learning karate, and then testing your karate in terms of readiness, in terms of, is it fit for purpose? So we had some great questions from Gyuji and via email, actually several. I'm going to kind of combine the first two together. So we're jumping into karate training, and it's really built around, the first question's built around the saying, you fight how you train. So Gyuji's asking, what do you think is necessary in order to be able to make training realistic for the outside world? And on the flip side of that, how do you train to protect your partner, but also train realistically? So what are your thoughts on that, Sensei?
Oh, look, Gyuji, thanks. Great question. Where am I looking? Am I looking up there? Down there? Okay. Gyuji, thank you. Nice question. And the question itself tells me a lot about who you are and what you're looking for. And I hope that how I respond may be of some value to you. But first, let me just mention something, because you were talking about learning and training and so on. From my perspective, here at 70 years old, is that learning is not the same as practice, and practice is not the same as training. So you have three separate outcomes, which all have varying assessment criteria as well. What I mean to say is learning is to bring on board something that is usually new to a person. Whereas practice is taking what you have learned and finding a way with which to make it work for you. Not everybody does the same thing the same way to achieve the same outcome. Oh, sorry, am I right? No. And a deeper penetration of that same truth is that even you will not continue to do the same thing the same way across the spectrum of your life, if only because of the ravages of age. Here you are as a young man training a certain way. Here you are as a middle-aged person. Here you are, you may be physically or intellectually or emotionally challenged, and here you are as an old person, with arthritis. So the self-defense aspects by which our traditions would be a means, they never change. Whatever those acts of physical violence inherent in human nature are, they don't change. And if anything, they just get more intense. The way that you would effectively negotiate them, the young, strong, alpha version of you is not the same way you might do that in principle, in practice, when you're 50, 60, or 70 years old. And then the purpose of the practice of rehearsing and exploring the veracity of an application practice to test its functionality has to do with practicing with many different people and under various sets of circumstances until such time as the attacks, if we can call them that, or these acts of violence that you're trying to negotiate in a your two-person confrontational style engagement become unscripted and random. And the inability to get that application working, whether it's joint lock, pressure point, takedown, strangulation, throw, grappling, groundwork, or percussive impact, or you're standing back and duking it out with somebody, that requires the familiarity of a consistency that I can't get it working. Oh, I've got it working. Oh, it worked great against him, but not like Kramer. I'll kill him. He's only 4 years old. So what might work against one act of physical violence with one kind of attacker might not necessarily work with someone else. So the cliche that you fight the way that you train, or you train the way that you should fight, should example the brutality of physical violence that would occur on the street or in the workplace or wherever that domestic violence occurs in our society. So the culmination of learning how to handle, the percussive impact at various intervals, the clinch, the groundwork, and then there's a lot of other variations on those common things that people rarely even consider. I got a bag of groceries in my car. I open up the trunk. I'm going to put it in, and I get jumped from behind. How do you practice that in the dojo? And don't forget, in the dojo, at least in Japanese style dojo, you'd have your bare feet. And everything is generally templated based, and so you're not going to have your bare feet out there unless you're at the beach, And so there are a lot of variables that need to be covered. The other thing is this, and I was speaking to you earlier about it.
Just to interject there. Yeah. So do you recommend, for example, going and training on the beach, or going into the park, or training in everyday clothing?
Well, so he and I both know this, but I'll just say there's a term. In Budo we use, it's called yagai geiko, which means training out. It means training outdoors, and usually, often in the old days before the dojo, the idea of training was never in the dojo in the first place. So the idea that a dojo, a place where the way was practiced, became more. And so let me quote. I know we had one of these questions. I just want to slide it in right here. So when I first came to Japan in the mid 1980s, I had been very, very lucky to be mentored by some very, very wise and senior authorities. And anyway, I kind of grew up in the late 60s, early 70s in the so-called blood and guts era. So my focus was largely on functionality. And so when I got to Japan, I was like, oh gosh, the dojo wasn't, unless I was at a university dojo club or something like that, right. They didn't seem to be training to, the ferocity, in my opinion, was a little bit laid back. And a colleague of mine said, he said, you should, I'd like you to read this work by a guy named Eugene Herrigel, a German professor here, Eugene Herrigel. And he wrote a book called Zen in the Art of Archery. And the foreword of the book was written by a Zen prelate at the time, whose name was Suzuki Daisetsu Terutaro, or in English known as D.T. Suzuki. And in the foreword, he writes, and now they're talking about Kyudo, which is one of the many forms of Budo, of which karate is an integral part. So I'm going to use the word karate rather than Kyudo because it is a part of Budo. He said, karate, the way karate is embraced in Japan, unlike the West, is not for its utilitarian values as it is in the West, its functionality. The way karate or Budo or Kyudo is embraced in Japan is for the training of the mind. Indeed, the journey within. And I thought to myself, it was one of those, I had one of those, I call them BFOs these days, blinding flash of the obvious. That epiphany where you don't need to question it. It just becomes obvious. Yeah. Oh, for goodness sakes. So this is not just about, that Bumbu Ryodo. It's not just about, it's about a balance between physical and, I don't want to say intellectual, but scholarly, to be able to learn the difference, because, there's that body of moral philosophy which serves to govern the behavior of people who practice this otherwise brutal art. And can you imagine, you've got young people learning a very brutally effective, empty-handed form of combat, and no moral or ethical guidelines beside it. Yeah. So anyway, so a little bit off the topic there, but and one more thing, because we're very, very close to Tomari here, and we were talking about just not so far from a monument over here was someone whose name was Jun Soku, and for those Matsubashi Shorin people, you will remember the quote was, the first time I'd heard was in English, was in Nagamine Shoshin's second book, but was translated first into English by Shinzato Katsuhiko Sensei. And T or Tei used to represent the fighting arts here at one time, many moons ago. And he said, Jun Soku said, and he was an educator of youth. He was the person who developed the Mirindo school here, a Confucian-based educational school here. And he said, it's not enough that your T is strong, but it's the way that your character must be displayed in daily life. And so, as you well know, Jun Soku, a Sanchikan, a statesman, originally from here, would be the. You remember when we were in Nago one time, and I said, "Hey, did you ever see it?" He goes, "No, I've never seen it." I said, "It's right there." Yeah. They nicknamed him, the prefix, and called him Tei Jun Soku or T Jun Soku, and and that's the 17th century here in Okinawa. Yeah. So this idea about your training, how you embrace it, is very, very old, and it is even traces back older. But look, getting back to the point, whether you train outdoors, whether you train indoors, there has to be a representation of functional reality somewhere, or don't use the word self-defense. Now, we both know folks here and abroad who embrace the fighting arts as a form of physical fitness, as certainly a very challenging competitive sport, and certainly as a lifestyle. I would say we all have that in common, where it's at one point or another it's a lifestyle for us. And certainly the joke was that it's a business as well. It's an industry, and I used to make the joke that it could very well be the oldest business of all, until we found out what was the oldest business. I'm not talking about that, but the seed at its nexus, which gives birth to what this art became, and those are byproducts, was self-protection. And so, there are no rules in physical violence. A guy attacks you, you can't say, oh, just stop. Or Jim Carrey, you've attacked me wrong. So if I say, for example, to somebody, okay, you're from whatever style, how might you effectively negotiate being jumped from behind or having your jacket ripped over the top of your head and someone's pissed and punched your head, but you're biting your ear or something? How do you do? We don't do that. Referee was, and then somebody would say, well, how much you train for that? Yeah, you can't bite the guy's ear or, gouge, you can't do that. So it doesn't matter what your learning, practice, and training routines are, you simply cannot recreate that even in a safe learning environment. So you asked the question, Chizu, about, protecting your partner. The first thing is you always have to have a very sincere respect for whoever it is that you're training. And if you're more powerful or stronger, more experienced than the partner that you're working with, then you need to take that into account. I know it's a very tricky thing as well, because sometimes you might be dealing with a beginner, some 19 or 20-year-old beginner, 120 kilograms of solid muscle, who goes, hey, what are we doing today? And he doesn't know, or she doesn't know that that they're thinking you're the expert and you've got everything under control. We all know that's not necessarily the case. So so it starts with a particular pathway, and I call the pathway a pathway of progress with the exponential investment of aggressive resistance, and not just from the defender, certainly more from the attacker, and not just the attack, but when the defender begins to launch the defense, whatever templated based application practice that may be, the attacker doesn't go waiting for him to carry out defense, which I see all the time, by the way. And that's fine in the early learning stages, but once a familiarity has been established, the idea of adding that gradual to exponential investment of aggressive resistance has to go both ways. Because I do this and he responds, I'm not going to stand there and let him do it. I'm going to resist to his resistance or his response. And so therefore, you have a highly mobile application practicing happen. So that's why, in this pathway of progress to functionality, the mistakes or the failure, the inability to get the application practice working becomes the lesson itself. And that's why I'm such an advocate of the fact that two-person practices are the art. That is the art. Yes, and you have a wonderful, the one thing about a dojo these days, as opposed to just training outside, is the person supervising, whether it's a sifu, guru, a coach, a sensei, and I know those are highly subjective, and arguably they all have different mentor-based outcomes along with them. Room for another conversation elsewhere. This idea of following this pathway to functionality leads you directly to failure, and the failure becomes the lesson, and the lesson either compels you or whoever's mentoring you to go over and say, okay, let's try it another way. The act of violence is going to be the same. He pounced on you from behind in a headlock or threw you down or whatever it happened to be. Let's pick it up from there. And so working that back and forth with somebody fully clothed, somebody with shoes or shoes on, out at the beach, in the parking lot, all of these venues are areas that, in my opinion, should at one point or another, if the nature of your practice is self-defense, because then I said, well, what would you, if you were getting out of your car and somebody slammed the door on you and then dragged you out or jumped into your car with you, you can't, you're sitting down with a seatbelt, you can't do a jump spinning heel kick now, right. That you're the North American blah, blah, blah champion, doesn't matter.
So every mode of training has compromises, because you say, because there's no one mode of training which covers all scenarios or covers all levels of intensity, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the value of having cooperative training partners, but not too compliant, right? Training partners who will help to match and push and the scenario a little bit.
Can I shoot
and remain active? That's so important, right?
And that's exactly what I want to say. I know one of the questions you told me earlier when we were training, you said there was an aspect there where you're doing your practice, and then all of a sudden the focus changes. How then do you accommodate the change? Because you weren't expecting it. And not expecting it is, in fact, the ability to, a change. I was going to say it's science and art being fused together to create a transformative pathway so that the unscripted and the random becomes habitual. You tried this, it didn't work. He did something else, and you feel completely comfortable with it. Why? It's because you've done it 100 times or 200 times, and you've done it with dozens of different partners. And that ability to effectively negotiate that through practice. And there's one last thing I want to say as well. There's, sorry, I'm eating the microphone. There's one area that very few folks ever talk about, because instructors tend to, and if you do this and do this, this will happen, and Bob's your uncle, you're good. There's also the fact that it doesn't work. It didn't work, it doesn't work, and it won't work, and you can't get it to work because much of it is so highly personal. And what I would say, what you might be able to do is not maybe what I can do, or what a 50-kilogram child or lady, and I'm not. This is not discriminatory. It's just simply the fact.
There are lots of different shapes and sizes and abilities.
So that's something that has to be taken under account as well. But like you said, the beauty of functionality, and let me just close this on. Let's say that we were talking about swordsmanship, and I don't mean kendo. And I don't necessarily mean any particular type, but let's take Western fencing for a moment. There are certain gates of attack and defense against the way that you can use a sword. And then, because of the distance of the sword, there are other considerations. But after you have learned the fundamental attacks and the fundamental receptions, what else is there left to do? But duel back and forth.
Practice,
and the dueling, if you will, in my opinion, can be likened to what it is that brings us together. You've learned percussive impact, you've learned to clinch, you've learned to ground. You have a healthy respect for each other, where, if I put you in a choke or guillotine or rear naked or something like that, I'm not going to choke you, you tap, or I can see I got to let you go, or you got me and I grab a hold of you in a particular area and I got that. I don't need to squeeze you or bite you or gouge you hard enough to say, I feel good about that. I feel comfortable that worked under those circumstances. And we just continue then to roll or clinch or stand up and duke it out. And in the same way that you would fence, or the same way that BJJ or catch wrestler would continue rolling, is I got the arm bar. I don't need you to tap. I knew that I had a category 1 lever on your arm. You weren't able to defend it. I let it go and I do something else. And in Okinawa, old school was kakedamashi. With the KU people, we call that riai tegumi. But the end result is this: it's the pathway progresses ultimately to functionality. And somebody might ask, well, how long would it take to become functional that way? I can't really tell you. I can tell you this: how long would it take your children to learn how to ride a bike or climb a ladder or run 100 meters? Some people months. Some people weeks, some kids right away, and some people never.
It varies. It always varies.
We could do a dissertation on that if you like. Just one question. Very
quickly, I just want to say hi to Leonard, Vince, Sarah, and the other guys that are online there.
Hey guys.
Look
forward to seeing you in October.
Absolutely. So one more technical question, maybe just a quickie. But this from Steve Lowe. From your studies into the origins of kata, what are your views on power generation and power generators that Steve believes are found within kata. So topics such as tokiho, reverberation, vibration, etc. What do you think on that topic?
I learned a really interesting acronym back in the day from Nishiyama Hidetaka, who was a leader, innovative leader in the field of biomechanics back in the day. He was a Shotokan practitioner, obviously with Nakayama and the original JK, moved to Los Angeles, taught, and lived the rest of his life there. So, the idea to generate force, which is mass times acceleration, require an understanding of a certain type of biomechanics. And biomechanics itself, I'm going to come back to it in a minute and talk, because it's a science that continues to improve every generation, okay? So the idea of getting everything to work together to create an accelerative tool of impact, let's call it fist, because, percussive impact can be, I use my forehead, my elbow, my knee, my shin, my foot. There's lots of tools with which to impact, and it depends on which particular geography or real estate, anatomical real estate that I want to impact. And for example, if it was his eye, I wasn't going to use my fist; I'd use my finger, and I don't need to accelerate that quickly. Whereas maybe tap on the button, I want to get that brainstem twist to affect the sympathetic nervous system. I need something that's going to accelerate and much more quicker. So this idea of getting all of your joints from a ready position. Muscle only has one function, by the way. It's to contract. So you're flaccid to launch the attack. You need this biomechanical knowledge that has been brought into practice. And so to get all of the joint forces working together, you need to understand this study. I'll come back and I'll conclude this with what I think you're talking about by the use of kata. Kata can be described as a template, a timeless practice that has been handed down throughout the generations that contains this information, but only if we have the blueprint to understand it. So, total summation of joint forces was the term I learned from Nishiyama Sensei about how to generate that koshio hinaro, the hip rotation, the relaxation, the ability to launch that projectile off of your moving target to square mathematically the percussive impact on the target. So that requires knowledge and learning skill as well before you put it into practice, and then before you're able to train it. And of course, once you have it, then that's something that will serve to aid you irrespective of age or physical condition, because in principle, those mechanics will remain the same forever. So stepping and sliding, the idea of relaxation, the explosion. Did he say Chinkuchi and?
He talked about Tokiho.
Oh, Tokiho, okay. So,
but I know Steve talks about Chinkuchi too.
Okay, yeah. Every culture has different ways and languages, words and terms to express these mechanics and principles. And so a very important part here is every generation find or develop their own innovators who, in an effort to keep their traditions a living experience for the community that they serve, find reason with which to reinterpret the common principles upon which the tradition rests. And in doing so, and in spite of the lip service pay with, mine's better than yours, it is this ability to continue using critical thinking to understand this biomechanical challenge, to understand it in terms, and look at the average person who's training, practicing, they don't necessarily need to understand it in the theoretical terms that we instructors do. But as an instructor, you will be challenged by other people asking you the same question and needing to understand both its theory and its practice so that it can be used in training. So yeah, a good question, Steve. How are you? How's the dojo? You're great there.
Cool. Okay, let's move into... We've had lots more questions, by the way, and I want to say again, thank you to everybody that submitted questions. We had so many questions, we never had a chance to cover them all in the limited time, but thank you for submitting those. We're going to just move into the final category of questions, which relates to the Gashuku. So, October this year, we are organizing a Gashuku event. I'm very pleased to be able to assist Patrick Sensei in inviting people to come and study here in Okinawa. It's 4 days of intensive study, plus a lot more around it, October 21st to 24th. We've had quite a few questions from people who are coming, and as you might expect, those relate to the seminar itself, the program itself. So, what can we say?
May I ask a question?
Please.
I'm not going to, I mean, I knew that this question was here because you said it earlier, and it has to do, and I know somebody's going to ask us. It was about somebody had asked if joint manipulation, limb and tail, blood and air deprivation, fighting on the ground, this clinch, was that ever involved with karate?
Was that found in traditional karate?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Can I say that?
Please.
Okay, so because we'll do all that stuff anyway. And for those of you who already know about KU and what we do, I mean, that's our bread and butter, by the way. And just to take that a little step further, the kata from where I stand was never meant to teach you anything in the first place. It was meant to culminate what you should have already learned in a two-person practice in the first place. So separating the two-person practice and then isolating the solo representation and creating it into a solo ritual, which when linked together with other solo rituals, you could create a geometry. And depending on, your physical prowess and who you are, the way you performed it could be, across the spectrum of your life. And culminate that which you already learned. And the end result was something greater than the sum total of its individual parts. And that's the beautiful part about the art, which is expressed in kata, by the way. But karate, as we know it today, is a kind of a brand new art. It's funny, just last year, although nobody did anything about it, last year was in April, May was the 100-year anniversary of taking this very humble, modest, modified tradition up to the mainland of Japan by many people. It wasn't just Funagoshi Gichi, by the way.
Yeah.
And so, but you can imagine taking a humble art that was really cultivated here, an eclectic, haphazard fusion of fighting practices that had evolved here over the centuries from different places and by different people and for different purposes being taken up to the mainland. Nobody was interested in, at that time, a radical period of military escalation. Nobody was concerned with grappling because they had jujitsu, and certainly the father of educated Kano Jigoro Sensei had created a new and modified version of jujitsu to call it judo. So they had the grappling and the throwing all together. And of course, the kendo brought together hundreds of schools of swordsmanship into 4 techniques: tsuki, men, kote, and do, and then go fight. That was your reward at the end. But they had never seen closed fist impact before, as unusual as that may sound. And so our old schools of Tegumi, Muto, Shima, Okinawa Sumo, whatever you want to call it, whatever name suits you best for clinching and impacting, throwing somebody down and pouncing on them. I'm thinking that's clinch and grappling, isn't it? Okay, it's a wrestling of some sort. So yes, it did exist, and it existed for a very long time. There are various schools of thought about where it came from. Did it come from China? Was it Tammei Tomo who brought it here before the first Shou dynasty ever occurred? Was it the Kentoshi who brought it over? Conversation for another time, but yes. And by the way, grappling without weapons was a very adamant form of empty-handed fighting, especially during the Heian period as well. So anyway, so yes, joint lock, pressure point, takedown, strangulation, throw, grappling, all of the seizing activities are all Chinese-based, which were brought here. We all know the history between China. Certainly the solo representations, they all come from China as well. So yes, they are part, but not of karate, because karate was never ratified in name as certainly the new ideogram. 1905, my teacher's teacher, Hanashiro Chomo, first wrote, instead of using China, which is pronounced Sora, or in this case, Kara, which meant China, or Tang, and the Tang Sido is the same thing. He wrote the word Sora, the sky, empty, to use it. And that concept was later used on the mainland of Japan. And then, of course, 1936, we here at the roundtable meeting, or what is referred to as meeting of masters, decided to adopt that. So it's arguable karate's maybe 100 years old. So modern karate, no, no grappling. And by the way, that was something that was beaten into my head for, over the 30 years of me teaching seminars around the world. No, there's none of that. Fortunately, there were more people who were interested in learning it, because if the kata was just about punching and kicking, why were all the other things there as well,
Right.
And so, we'll be doing that at the Gassuku. Lots and lots of it, by the way.
Right. Yeah, so it's 4 days, which is going to, 4 full days, so it's going to equate to
9 a.m. till
9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's going to be a packed program. We got well over 100 people already confirmed to be coming, and I think the numbers are still going to swell.
132.
Yeah.
We didn't know. The pandemic was on. We had tried a couple of gatherings here, and we had 8, 10, 12 people together, type of thing. Yeah. So we weren't really sure. But now that the restrictions have been removed, and I said, we should just let everybody know now. I mean, it's not till 8 months away. And in 6 weeks we got like 132 registrations.
And one of the questions we had is the program going to also include kobudo weapons?
Yeah. And just one more thing on that is like, and I know especially my friends. Hola, mi amigo, ¿cómo está? Estamos bien. Un abrazo, mi amigo. My friends in Spain, especially in Madrid, with our boss from the Madrid Karate Federation, that we all, gosh, I don't know what this is. We had like 250 black belts out in the morning, 150 black belts in the afternoon. And then the next day was another 100, so reaching a big audience as a seminar instructor, that was never a problem. And I was saying to James, why do we have to restrict it? I don't understand. Come on, I'm sure we can get 300-400 people, or no problem. And he says, yes. But can you imagine calling a restaurant? Yes, I'd like to make a reservation. Oh, for how many? 200? It's impossible. And even 100 is going to be really, really difficult. So we're now rethinking. That's why we put a cap on it, Yeah. Anyway, so
it's going to be a fantastic experience. And that actually leads on to another question we had: is what other things will be available for the time before and after the seminar? So actually, we've been thinking from the beginning about having a program which extends further than just the days of instruction. One of the things that we're doing on the day before the seminar starts is we'll be taking people on a walking tour around historical sites in Naha, Tomari, and Shuri. So that's something to look forward to. The day following the seminar is Karate Day in Okinawa, and we will be doing our 100 Kata challenge, as we usually do. But this is the 10th anniversary of that challenge.
How lucky are we?
So you are all very welcome to join us if you can in Okinawa, and certainly around the world, as many of you usually do. But then, because you're in Okinawa also, we will be organizing, for example, the opportunity to go scuba diving, or the opportunity to go to the beach and do training. Yeah. So there will, and also other
dojos.
Visiting other dojos too. Yes, actually, we're starting to talk to other teachers in Okinawa who are happy to welcome visitors.
Don't say who they are.
Yeah, for that period as well. So yes, all in all, the program is a 12-day program, and I think you guys are going to be really busy every day.
Do you think? Hey, and by the way, with the tour thing, it's such a, I was going, no. We got to get the buses. We got to get the people on the buses. You think about it for a minute. You're in a bus for an hour or two.
Yeah.
An hour or two back. You can stay there half an hour or something, look around.
Yeah.
And he said, no, the walking tour, we can start at the Funagoshi Monument, go down to Tomari, foreign cemetery graveyard, all these wonderful monuments, and head up through, give it all away, but, there's a little prize at the end, absolutely fantastic. The walking tour, and we'll stagger them. So we'll have several different groups, and we have some wonderful translators for those of you who do not speak Japanese. We're having some wonderful translators who will be able to answer all of your questions. So they're bilingual, fully bilingual, and they have been studying the history of karate as well. One of them is right over there. You saw her earlier in the screen sneaking by. So, and look who's just showed up. Hey, come say hi. Come on, come say hi.
I don't know.
So we have
Andrea Clementsova.
world-class karate champions here as well. So
We're very lucky
there's a
to have
seminar coming up right after.
very lucky to have Andrea now teaching at the dojo, teaching Goju-ryu at the dojo regularly.
Yeah.
Good to see you. And yes, and she's here because we are following on this session from 8 p.m. with a Zoom seminar, and the focus of that will be Hojo Undo. So if you guys want to join us for the Hojo Undo seminar afterwards, you are very, very welcome. You can find the information to that on our Asato Dojo Facebook. So I think we've got time.
We have time.
We've got 3 or 4 minutes.
6.
Yeah. One last question. Let's have a look here.
Get out of the shot. I was just kidding. You're better looking than us. You come back in the shot.
Good. So we talked about the program. We talked about some technical questions. What other things? This is interesting. So what other things are you looking forward to this year?
Okay, for me personally, I'm dying to meet my KU family. I haven't seen them for a few years, so that the first thing. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm coming right. I love you all. So no, I mean, we've got so. I wasn't supposed to say 130, right? We have 100 people or more from 20. I thought it was 22. It's 23 countries. We have. It's for me, it's the camaraderie. I love you guys, and up until 3 years ago, I used to travel around to all the countries and meet and spend time with. Never enough time, but it was always so much fun. And this time we get the chance to host you here. So I want to first of all, I want to make sure that you really. You're gonna love the food anyway. You're gonna love the historical sightseeing. You know what the training's like already. Yeah. And somebody asked about the curriculum of the itinerary.
Yes.
Look, we have not nailed it down yet, but it's me. You know that I'm going to lecture about cultural anthropology, about the mechanics and principles of application practices. That everything we do is style free. And even if you're not from our group, but you're association member, or actually we open it to everybody, you're welcome to take our practices back and put them under the foundation of your own itinerary school. I promise that they will help strengthen and empower your already existing practices, so you never need to change the cosmetic of whatever it is that you're doing. And so you can be sure that there are going to be just countless two-person application practices. I really want to spend some time in making sure that those who have not experienced our practices, how to then separate the two-person practices, look at the functional application practice, how it's shaped into a module, Steve, I was going to mention this to you as well about a kata. It can be a model or example or in basically how something is done. And so in the solo representation, if you know already the two-person application practice, so when you see the solo representation, you already know what it means. And so that idea of culminating that which you have already learned becomes readily apparent. So you don't need to reverse engineer anything because you already know what it means. And in that regard, there's always leeway depending on your size, your strength, how that is displayed. So we're going to cover that. We also have guest instructors as well. And I've been told not to tell you who they are. It's part of the surprise, but I can tell you, you're going to be very happy with our instructors. The walking tour, we're going to have a bunch of Okinawan dignitaries who will come as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure they can't
no
stay
names.
away. Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
sure you see the photographs of.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody asked about the photos and the.
Yes, so we've been asked, will there be photos and video taken? Of course, absolutely. It would be crazy of us not to document the whole thing. What we are going to do is strike a balance, though. So we don't want people, stopping for pictures and video all the time, not focusing on training. So we are going to try and have a balance where, yes, we're going to record everything, and yes, we want to give you opportunities to record the pieces that you want to record. and there will be an official record of it. How we distribute that and how they
That's
have
another
access
story.
to that is we're going to work out.
Yeah.
But it is going to be quite a body of work. It's a 4-day seminar, so we're going to get a lot
But I
of
know a lot of
fantastic
you are
material
coming
from it.
because you're coming early. We're going to do all that stuff out in Katsuran and then Karate no Hi the next day, and then 100 Kataka challenge. And then, just quickly, we got a minute. That week, there's going to also be, because of the Kaikan and the Budokan and Karate Foundation, there's going to be lots of activities all over Okinawa.
Yeah,
and Naha is going to be a mecca of karate-related and Kobudo-related activities. So come enjoy. Yeah.
Please do. Please do. We're getting lots of follow-on questions, and I tell you what we're going to do is we will follow up offline and answer your questions. Thank you. These questions are great. They're really, really useful to us, and it's been fantastic to have you here online.
See the name. Is that Josh Simmers right there, Josh?
We got
right there.
Josh,
Josh.
Joseph Glavin, Miguel Smith,
Joseph
Joe Glavin.
Joseph Glavin.
Yeah.
Kirk. I'm from Kirk. Is that Narumi? Where's that?
Narumi, no, not at the moment, no.
Oh, am I looking at the wrong one?
Yeah, that's the one. Thank you.
Apologies.
No worries.
Oh, down.
Okay, so we are unfortunately out of time, but I want to say a big.
Alain Roy. Comment ça va aujourd'hui, mon ami? Oui. Where? Oh, it's. Okay, forget it.
Thank you so much for being my special guest.
My pleasure.
And the time has gone way too fast. Thank you for everybody for joining us today. As I say, we will be sharing this. So if you weren't here live, you can follow up afterwards and coming back to you on individual questions. If they relate to the Gashuku, we'll also put that information into the FAQs and otherwise replying to you via email.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Otsukare-sama.
Nihi deberu.
Hi. Okay, guys, take care. If you're joining us for the seminar here that starts in half an hour, I'll see you again very soon. Otherwise, I'll see you when I see you next month, same time, last Sunday of the month, 6:30
Who's
local
the next
time.
guest?
It's a mystery. It will be announced. All right. Hope to see you soon. Take
Thanks,
care, guys.
everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.